I just received an email, Will. I've tried to participate, but system registration is closed. Would it close after 6?
I don't think so, no.
The registration, I enrolled just before 5, and it told me I could only enroll up until 5 o'clock.
Oh.
Okay.
And then when I went to that same link to log in, I left that screen up on, that window up on my screen. And then I came back about 5 minutes before I finally got in. I tried to log in through there, and it told me that I wasn't allowed to log in until 15 minutes before the presentation began.
Oh,
so that's when I had to go to my emails and log in via the email. Because the link on the actual Meetup, was it the Meetup window? I think it was. Wasn't actually working properly.
Okay. Thanks for letting us know.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I hope that helps.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I made the mistake of promising somebody I'd go to dancing lessons tonight, so half of this call will have to be from the car on the way there.
Have it on while you're doing the dancing as well.
That was the thing. Yeah. Well,
question.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Yeah. My dancing's already bad enough, so yeah.
But that's a nice promise.
But just take all of us with you.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, it's lessons.
Okay, so there's a few things I've jotted down and we can try and improve on for next month. We'll get back to the guys and tell them our feedback.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, hi everyone. How you doing? Everyone good?
All good.
All good.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Will.
Awesome.
More importantly, how are you guys?
Yeah, doing well.
Good.
Yeah.
Keeping busy and out of mischief, as they say.
Fun time setting up your first one.
Yeah.
I've had a good week. I got my first jab yesterday, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
Oh, good on you, John.
Increasing my chances of going back to the UK at some point soon. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. Direction.
We've got ours booked for the middle of next month. That was the soonest that we could get ours booked for.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm halfway between my 2 jabs. I've had one about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and waiting mid July.
That's good, isn't it? Yeah. A lot sooner than I thought it was going to happen here. So
Yeah.
which is good.
Okay, let's jump in, shall we? Get it going. Share the screen. Hopefully everyone can see that.
Yep.
Okay. That's better. So a quick agenda. I'm not going to run through. It probably won't last for too long tonight because it's just a Q&A session for the whole thing, which is great. But we'll introduce some of the presenters. So some of the organizers, sorry. So myself, my name is Will, and one of the organizers here. My background is WordPress consultancy. I also look after the WordPress Sydney Meetup. I'm trying to boot up the WooCommerce Sydney Meetup as well. My day job at the moment, I do mostly consulting with WordPress and companies, but I'm looking to spin up some more business-related assets as well. So maybe next month I'm going to be launching Will Brown Digital, which is more based on businesses and getting started in business and business tips. So I'm excited about that. John, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I am John, and I am a graphic designer, and I'm self-employed. This is my office. I work from home. And I know nothing about coding. I'm not a developer, and I still need to build a lot of websites using WordPress for my clients, and that's why I now use Elementor for almost everything, because it allows me to be super creative rather than sticking to a strict template. So yes, I love Elementor. And I've started teaching classes on Skillshare. I will drop that one in. I'll send a link at some point to that so you can check them out. And the one that's gone up recently is just how to use Elementor. So if you are a bit new to Elementor, check that one out.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Julia.
Hi, I'm Julia. I'm a web designer. I work for a software company as a web designer, and I have also my own business on the side, which is called Waba Web, and we do websites, graphic design, social media management, bits and pieces of everything. Started using Elementor a few years back. I really enjoy working with it. I'm not a web developer. I like and enjoy a little bit of coding here and there, but definitely Will is the professor here. So I'm a good follower here.
Thanks, Julia. I don't know about Professor. And Morris, unfortunately, can't be with us tonight. He'll try and drop in next month. Okay. Let's look at code of conduct. As always, we want to be inclusive and friendly for everyone. So we've got code of conduct. Please have a look at that. It should be in the Meetup description as well. So just like kind of welcome to everyone. This Meetup is the first Thursday of every month from February to November, maybe December as well. We'll see what we want to do in December. We might have just a Christmas hangout or something like that. We've got a new I should mind that link. Actually, got a new Meetup group. So it's on events.elementor.com now. We just try and keep this fun and informal. So for your mic, if other people are talking, please just keep it muted until it's your turn. Use the chat box for comments in general when we're doing like the presentations. And yeah, don't be afraid to ask any question at all. We've all been at the beginning. So any question is doable, and that's fine. We're going to let you introduce yourselves. We probably know who you are anyway, but we'll do it for the recording. And when you're just telling us who you are and where you're from and what you do, also tell us what you're drinking as well. So I got my big tea mug here. So it's a big mug there. So I drink half a liter of tea at a time. I love my tea. But most of all, just relax and just have a nice time. So guys, if you want to introduce yourself, I'm going to stop sharing this and go back to everyone. What we did in Zoom was we got you to raise a hand in Zoom if you want to introduce yourself. We don't really have raising hands in here, so we'll figure something out. There we go, hands up. Okay, Paul, you were first. Go for it.
All right. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Yes. I've been in IT for a long time, mostly a database administrator, but been in management and so forth for a long time. But I've not so recently now kicking off a fledgling WordPress own business as such. So yeah, trying to get a few clients. I've got a couple of charities that I've looked at after for a while now through friends of friends. But yeah, thought I might just give this a show, and yeah, so really just trying to learn as much as I can, and particularly web development and business, and yeah, happy to talk to everyone and participate in groups like this to get to know everyone and hopefully learn a bit as well. So.
Great, thanks, Paul.
Great, thank you.
John, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi all. I have owned and run a family printing company for the last 35 years, retired from sort of active management about 2 years ago, and now haven't been busier, find myself with hardly any spare time whatsoever. Still doing a little bit of consulting, a bit of graphic design, and expanding my interests in web design and development. Been in web probably since, working with WordPress since about 1995, so reasonably familiar with WordPress itself, but only been playing with Elementor and a few alternatives, I must say. probably for the last 12, 18 months. So still learning, but working on some fun projects at the moment.
That's exciting. Great. Thanks for your introduction, John. Debbie, do you want to give a quick intro to everyone?
Yeah, g'day guys. Sorry, I think I just disconnected myself a minute ago.
Thought you went dancing.
Don't hit that button, whatever you do. Yeah. G'day guys. I'm Dowie. Normally fly for a living, but because of COVID, everything's been grounded. Started designing websites back in 1993 when I was learning to fly. That's how I sort of paid for my flying lessons. Been in aviation for the last 15, 20 odd years, and because of everything that's happened, I've gone back into IT, web design, hosting, domain registrations, and lately I've got quite heavily into Google Ads, which I'm actually quite enjoying. So if anyone has any questions or wants to do some Google Ad work, I'd love to work with you. And Will, you are the guru, by the way.
I don't know about that.
You can't deny it.
I do have glasses though, which.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, there you go.
We should get you a stethoscope or something. So yeah.
Yeah.
So hi to everybody. Great to see you all.
Hey.
Good to have you.
For those who are off cam, welcome. You're very welcome to spin up your camera if you like, but that's fine. You can just send messages in the chat. That's okay. Let me just share the screen a little bit again. Okay, so we've got some Elementor updates for you. It's Elementor's 4th birthday, apparently, according to the website and some of the people on the Slack channel that we're members of. And because of their 4th birthday party to celebrate, they are given a 50% off all their pro or the paid levels until Monday the 7th. So you've got 5 days to grab 50% off.
Renewals?
No. It's just the initial one. I know. No, it's just the first year. Or if you buy like a multi-year pack, then you'll get 50% off that, just to celebrate their birthday. So that's good. Just a little bit about Elementor itself. They've got a new pro version coming out soon. It's in beta. It's going through different beta phases. So this is going to be version 3.3. So this is the pro. This is the paid Elementor plugin. So there's going to be, and I think we can say this because it's out on GitHub publicly. So the new feature is going to be a new hotspot widget. So if you download the beta just now, you can play with that on a non-production server. But this is going to allow you to have a picture, an image, and then allow different hotspots on different places, allowing you to select somewhere on the image, and you can click a pop-up or an information or like a modal that comes up for that. So they're kind of going down into more kind of interactive stuff. I don't think it's a video. I think it's just image at the moment. But we'll just we'll wait and see. It's still in beta mode for that. But definitely, I'm going to play around with that this month because I'm quite interested in the interactive part of that. I think that'll be really cool. And the next new feature is going to be a video playlist. So I've not played around with this, but I did have a look at the documentation. So it is, as it says, it's a list of different videos that you can bunch together. So if you're just like YouTube, if you're mostly doing video productions and you want to give people a particular suite of videos together, you can bundle them together in different playlists, and people can just play through them and watch them all grouped together. So I think it's going to be quite cool as well. And as always, there's going to be lots of tweaks and bug fixes as well. Noticeably, some of the new things that are coming, or some of the tweaks to the existing widgets, are MailChimp tags are going to be supported. So if you're not into digital marketing, if you don't have like an email distribution system, most of them work where you subscribe somebody to a list, and then based on the list, maybe X days after, or you create a campaign based on this list. Tagging is a more advanced marketing feature. So you can add a tag to an existing contact on the list, and then you can build automation from that tag. So for example, if you've got somebody who's bought something from your shop, and each time they buy something from your shop, you can maybe add the shop category in as a tag. and then you're building up more information about the person, and based on particular tag levels, then you can send them emails and campaigns. So it's a more advanced marketing tool. And MailChimp got tag support maybe 2 or 3 years ago. It's not as advanced as some of the other ones like ActiveCampaign, but it's nice to see the Elementor's supporting that now, so you can start to do more advanced digital marketing techniques when you're grabbing people's details. So that's an exciting one. It's just a little footnote all the way down in the release notes, but that's probably the one that I'm most excited about. Accessibility improvements as well. So they've got a whole team that are working on accessibility to make sure that people can get your website through screen readers and other different prompts, and it's all properly accessible for that. So they're always tweaking that, which is fantastic. And one of the new features that I've been heavily working on, and this links in with the new Google updates for page speed and stuff, is conditional CSS loading. So you can play around with that. What that does is it's going to allow you to only load particular CSS style sheets based on something. So whether that's in the Elementor page settings or whether it's based on a module or a widget, not quite sure about that just yet. But anything that allows you to reduce the amount of stuff you have to load in, I think is really, really good. So some really interesting little tweaks there, as well as the big new features. So I'm kind of looking forward to 3.3 when that comes out. If you're looking for extra support through the month, join our new Sydney Elementor Facebook group. So the URL's there. Just search for Elementor Sydney on Facebook and jump in there, and we'll help you as much as we can. Okay, that's it. I'm going to stop sharing. So it's Q&A time. This is what it's all about today. Mostly for us, it's just so we can play around with the system, as well as being interactive with you guys as well. But it's a chance for you to ask some questions about Elementor or kind of general WordPress and Elementor, and we'll see if we can steer you guys in the right direction. And for those of you guys who are not on camera, drop your question in the chat, and we'll repeat the question and see if we can help out in that one as well. So guys, have you got any questions? In chat? Yep.
Was that a yes to me?
Yep, John. Yep. Put up your hand if you want.
Dare I share a screen? I was wondering if I could throw a problem that I'm facing at the moment and see if anyone's got some brilliant ideas for it. Let me see if I can achieve the desired result. Do I get to see? Yes, I do. Okay. One of the sites that I'm working on, which is occupying quite a bit of my time at the moment, is a museum site, a community museum. And it's probably unique in as much as there is absolutely no commercial interest as far as the museum is concerned in building its website. It is purely and utterly informational. They are branching out into having a donation page, so I suppose that's as far as any e-commerce goes on the website. But being basically a source of information, and a lot of it's scientific information, they have a huge amount of data in the background. And one component of that is this Biodiversity Index, which you can see on my screen at the moment. And this is one tiny window into the Biodiversity Index on one page, which is the bird page, where they go into a lot of detail about the birds in the area, and then have this intro into the Biodiversity Index. The index itself is basically nothing more than custom posts. Posts with a lot of custom fields that relate to things like, if it's animals or plants or whatever, and descriptions of them and so on. So what we're seeing here is basically nothing more than a post grid with, on the left-hand side here, a faceted search, which has been implemented with Facet WP, at the moment. But each of these then represents a single post, and as you can see down in the bottom left of the corner, this is the cattle egret, and you can see it's if I click on that, I go directly to the post page. But what the customer wants is not to go to the post page; they want a pop-up, because there's so much information here, and by moving it back and forwards from page to page, there'll be a considerable slowdown. And a user may want to be going from one bird to the next bird to the next bird quickly just to compare features. I've struggled to find any combination of plugins that will allow that to happen. Any thoughts?
Can I ask you something, John?
A combination of a post grid, a facet search, and a modal pop-up. I can get 2, but not 3.
How many can I say just birds? If it's only birds or
birds
animals?
At the moment, I think there are only about 50. In total, there's probably going to, it's a long-term project, there's probably going to be several thousand entries.
Okay.
Not just for birds, that is, but yeah.
So per each selection, when you refine your search in the left sidebar, how many would you have on that page showing, roughly, as an estimate?
If I clear all the filters from it, it's 17, 16, and 11. So what's that, 30, 40, 53?
Okay. But you wouldn't have more than, say, maximum 20?
Probably not, because each of the individual pages, we've got one for birds, as I've said before. There'll be other pages for complete for other groups. It'll be unlikely that there'll be more than 40 or 50 common ones that are presented at any one time. So this post grid is obviously just looking at the bird post or the posts that are in the category or have a tag. I haven't decided which way to do it yet for birds, but there will be quite a large number of other groups of organisms. Anyway, a challenge that I still haven't figured out yet.
And the information you have to display for each one, is it a lot of information?
It's a...
when you click on one and you just end on that post page?
Well, if I just go to that page, the page hasn't been set up at all. It's probably going to be easier editing the post, and you can see.
What information is the client looking for when they click on that pop-up, John?
Basically, you can't see me pointing. Basically, the information that's in these custom fields, but presented in a nicer format. So, the pop-up would be designed probably almost full page, but not quite, perhaps. But have a photograph and a heading and a description and some of the rest of this information. And this is just the scientific, the biological database. We've also got one for cultural and historical events as well as books and documents and whatever. So we're only on the very tip of getting this working. And maybe WordPress is not the ideal platform to do it in, because the extent of the data is so large. But I thought I'd try first with the birds, given there's only 43 of them.
Here's my thoughts on this. If your client is looking to do a full page pop-up, then that would suggest that they probably shouldn't do a pop-up. Pop-ups are great for consolidating information together, but once it reaches full screen and you're scrolling upwards and downwards, then that kind of defeats the whole purpose of having a pop-up anyway. So I would really question what they want on their pop-up and whether that's the best mechanism for doing that.
The thought with a pop-up is that it would be faster than loading the whole page.
But it sounds like they're loading the whole page anyway.
Well, they're loading all the information. So I'm working on the assumption that a pop-up would probably preload in some way, shape, or form, would it?
Not necessarily. If you're getting the information from the WordPress database, then it's just going to do a query exactly the same. It's just the other elements round about. If you're looking to design it with Elementor, though, because Elementor does have its own pop-up system.
Yeah.
In there, I'd probably be creating some sort of template with a query in there, and then I'd be feeding information into that query using URL parameters. So it might be the post ID for that, so that the link when you click on it.
Could that be dynamically generated from the list grid?
Well, yeah, that you probably need a little bit of custom code, a little bit of custom JavaScript code, to add that into the pop-up for that. But yeah, that's the way that I'd probably go down that road, is that the link that they click on would have a link to the pop-up, and within the pop-up would be a custom query that takes in the URL parameters for that post ID, and then it can pull out all the information from there. Or you could try and use dynamic tags as well for those, and kind of push, try and search, get the custom fields out using the dynamic tags.
Okay.
So you can maybe give that a go.
I'll explore that a bit more. Thank you.
Cool.
And what about, just adding to that, what about trying to use, but you might have already tried, John, accordions or tabbed content? You can build that quite easily with Elementor. So that could be something as well, that once you click, it just expands and shows the full content right beneath. And it shouldn't also, it should be a good solution without penalizing from an SEO perspective, I think, as well.
How fast would that load, I wonder? Okay.
Well, it's an option. Just have a play around with it. But maybe with that, where you have the name of, for instance, on this screen I see now, where you have the name of the bird, you could easily click on that, and it would sort of expand and have the other content that you want to showcase.
Yeah.
So that's just an idea.
Okay, thank you.
Steph has got a question in the comments about WP2 Static and how well that works with Elementor. So just a quick look for this. And WP2 Static is a WordPress static site generator. So what that would seem to me, there's not a lot of documentation there, but I've suggested what it does is like caching plugin. It pre-generates a WordPress page that's been built and then stores it in HTML and then serves that statically to users. And the whole idea behind that is to try and get stuff to do a lot quicker for those. Steph, I don't know how well these static generators work for WordPress and behind Elementor. I've not tried any of them, so that's a completely new area for me. I know there's a particular service, and I can't remember off the top of my head what it is, but there is a service out there where they say that if you migrate your WordPress database over to them, then you'll be able to basically serve static versions of that site. But then if you look a little bit closer in the documentation, then they list a whole bunch of exceptions. So things like WooCommerce cart page, no login dashboard, no login page, no, all these sort of things, like all these lists of hundreds of different conditions that they can serve a static one. And I would assume or presume that Elementor would be probably top of that as well, because it does so much stuff dynamically. It's got so much JavaScript. It's got the dynamic tags as well. So it's not only generating its own stuff dynamically, it's also pulling stuff in based on the conditions that you put in. So I would think that generating a static Elementor page would be a little bit too difficult. I could be wrong, but yeah. So that's a good question. A lot of people are trying to make things go faster, especially with the new Google algorithm, half of which launched today. Yeah, it's something worth testing out, I think, Steph, on like a staging site or development site. Just copy your Elementor site over, run the plugin on that, and just see how well it works, and maybe we can get you on and do a little presentation on that in 1 month. It sounds quite interesting. So that's a good one. I like that one. Hopefully that didn't answer your question very well. Anyone else got any general questions for Elementor or WordPress or anything like that?
I hinted when I introduced myself that I'd been sort of dabbling with all sorts of alternatives, several of which were prompted by the fact that page load speed and associated metrics seem to be very at the front of my thinking at the moment, and exploring alternatives that claim not to be as bloated as Elementor, things like Oxygen and Webflow particularly, which are much more code oriented, I think, even though they claim to be no code builders. Does anyone have any thoughts or comments about the comparison with these alternatives, specifically in relation to page speed, clean code, lack of bloat, and any other euphemisms you can think of?
John, Julia, do you want to chip in?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess it comes down to what you know what to do, really. Now, I know I could build something using coding and it would be a lot faster than all of the Elementor sites that I build. The problem is I don't know coding, and the clients that I'm working with do not have the budget to pay for a developer to work alongside me. So they're looking for something more simple. So that's kind of what it comes down to, really, that if you're more comfortable using Elementor than using anything with coding like Oxygen, Python, anything like this, then stick with it. Because there's a lot you can still do inside Elementor and other page builders to kind of speed things up. And like, Elementor is a good one if you start off with just the theme of just hello Elementor and then build it yourself from there. You're kind of starting off with essentially a blank theme. And the problem is when you're buying in a theme, I've built ones with Divi before, and I bought in a theme and I didn't use sort of 99% of it, but I had no idea how to take all of this code out of it. Whereas Elementor, all right, there will still be things in the Hello Elementor theme that I don't need, but there's going to be a hell of a lot less in there than if I'm buying in a pre-built theme. So if you're comfortable enough with building it from scratch, that's what I would recommend. And then it's a case of just sort of building your website and getting it working and looking how you want it to look. And then using GT metrics and Google page speed to try and figure out what is wrong with it. And if you use any of those, so if you use Pingdom, GT metrics, Google page speed, they will tell you what is wrong with it. And a lot of that you can look at and go, oh, okay, yes, I can fix that. Some of it you probably can't, because that's going to need a developer to come in and fix it up and take out a lot of the code that's not in there. But then you will find other things that can fix it. And one that I've found with a lot of clients that I work with is when they're uploading images, they're uploading an image that's just 10 times too big. But, you know, they've got a website that's been running for 5 years and already has 10,000 websites on it. But you can get programs that will fix that, something like Short Pixel, for instance. If you've ever been there, shortpixel.com. And you can kind of install that, and it will go through and automatically resize all of your images for you. And then you can also have them presented in the WebP version. So it's taking a file that might be sort of, 1,000 meg big, and just drop it down to KB or something like that. So that can be a big thing that can speed up your site ahead of trying to build it using coding. So yeah, that'd be my recommendation.
Yeah.
A couple of months ago, somebody wrote an article that had the title Elementor becomes near obsolete with Google Core Web Vitals update. And it basically sent the chills through the Elementor team. they have people now working on that, and they have been working on that for the past couple of months. Let me just share my screen quickly. You might not have noticed, but if you go into Elementor, I know it's really small, sorry about that. If you go into Elementor in the settings, there's a little tab called Experiments here. Let's see if I can make that any bigger. Is that any better? A little bit. Make it a little bit bigger. There we go. Okay, so if you go into Experiments and go down, so you can see some of the stuff that they are currently working on. So it's not yet in the core plugin, but they've released it for you to test it, and you can see the status of them. So one here is optimized DOM output, and Elementor got that particular article said that Elementor was probably one of the worst page builders because it outputs so much HTML output, it wraps everything in divs and whatever. So the first thing on the experiments list here is optimized DOM output. Now you can activate that or set it to inactive, and you can see the status is beta just now. So it's not fully worked on, but it's not like just a concept either. A concept would be an alpha, which you've got down here. But you can try these things. So I would run this on a test server. And as John said, I'd run that through GTmetrix. Then come in here, go to the experiments, click that on, go to active, and then run it through GTmetrix again and see if you get a performance increase with that. And of course, have a look at your website to make sure it's not messed it up. But then there's another one called improved asset loading. And this is where Elementor tries to determine what to load in based on what modules and what widgets that you're using as well. So rather than load all the CSS and all the JavaScript in, it tries to dynamically add them in. Now this one is alpha, which means it's less stable than the beta one, so it's more likely to have a few errors. But again, you can try that. You can see what it loads in, set that to active, refresh, and then see what disappears and see if the GTmetrix picks that up. As well. I think that's the only ones there. Yeah, just those two ones for that. So that's specifically Elementor. So they've been working very, very hard to reduce the amount of HTML that it generates, to reduce it cleaner, and to not load everything in. Elementor does a good job of not loading stuff in anyway, unlike other page builders, which I won't go page build bashing just now. But this is an improvement, a step up from that, to try and just load the assets that it actually needs. So I definitely recommend having a look at that on a development server and just playing around with that.
Yes, I had a play with that one with one of my clients' websites, and they have a very templated website. So if something was broken on one page, it was kind of broken on all pages. And I tried everything on that list, and they all made the website load faster. And it just broke one thing that I'd done on kind of multiple pages, which was the hero section, where I kind of had a color and an image and then a white box with text at the top. It kind of just all disappeared and it wasn't there. So what I did was just set all those settings, this DOM settings and all of that, deleted that hero, and then just created a new one that I knew was now going to work because I had the DOM setting running. And all these other settings, couldn't tell you which one it was, to be honest. And then once I'd created it once, I could just save that and then just duplicate that on all the other pages. So it's worth having a little play around with it. And if you just set it to active and then you go through and it breaks the whole website, just turn it off. I mean, that'll be my recommendation. I'm not saying it will break your website, but make sure you do a backup of your website before you do this. So you can go back to that one immediately, just in case.
There's also a lovely little plugin called Asset Cleanup. And that what it does is you can activate it on a per page basis, and once it's loaded in, when you go into a page, it tells you all the JavaScript and CSS files that particular page loads in, and then you can uncheck which ones you don't want.
What's the name of that plugin?
It's called Asset Cleanup. It's very, very, very good. So you'll get a lot of plugins that just load JavaScript files in just because. So you can go down to your pages and you can get rid of it, and you can actually do it for templates and styles and post types as well. So for example, one of the things I use is Easy Digital Downloads, and they do load in. It's not a huge JavaScript file, but they load in a JavaScript file that allows you to add stuff into the cart using Ajax. But I disabled that on posts because I'm not selling stuff on my posts. So I try to make my posts a little bit faster. It's only a few K, but a few K for Google Web Vitals, can add up to quite a bit. So yeah. Can you post a plugin name? I'll look for the URL just now. Oh,
I did have a look, Will, if that's the one.
That's the one. Yep. Cool. It's very good. The user interface is not so good. It's just basically a long list of checklists, but it does group them by plugin, which is quite nice. So you can see, what stuff's being loaded in.
Is there a similar easily used plugin that will actually identify unused plugins? I've inherited a site that's just got so many plugins in it that I couldn't believe it. It just kept scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And I short of turning them off one by one and seeing if it's had any effect, I thought there's got to be something faster than this. Anybody got any thoughts or recommendations?
No, actually. Because it depends. You can get a plugin that does something as complicated as WooCommerce, or you can get a plugin that just does like one little admin thing in the admin area. So I think it'd be very difficult to scan through everything to figure out what plugins are in use or not, unfortunately. I think probably the best option might be that asset cleanup plugin, and then load that in, and then go into like a post and a page and see what that's loading in. And then if you're not seeing the plugin in there, then it's probably a good call that's not being used.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one, that. I mean, you can just deactivate everything, and it depends how many plugins you've got, really. And you should, some clients I've picked up have got about 300 plugins, and I'm like, well, you definitely don't need that many. And that is massively slowing down your site. So I literally just switched everything off. And then I guess it just kind of came from more experience, really. And I'm like, oh, okay, that definitely needed to be in there because they've got this kind of MailChimp form in there. So I'll switch the MailChimp one back on. But then you can kind of see that they have kind of 3 or 4 different MailChimp ones in there. So, yeah, I guess it's just sort of like give yourself a day or two and just give it a try. Switch them all off, switch them all on, and just try and see what works. I don't know of any plugin that would be able to pick up and go, yes, you need this, yes, you need that, because they don't really know what we are doing with our website or what we're not. Because they could say, hey, this form's in there, but it might be something you never use, and the plugin wouldn't know that. So, yeah, just take some time and just give it all a test, because you will just see, if you turn them all off, how much faster your page will load anyway. So,
yeah.
That, John, is called a site audit, and you charge for that.
Yeah.
Well, I've done it with clients when they've just asked me to create a new website for them. So I take their old one and bring it into a staging format, and then basically turn everything off. And then as I'm building it, I kind of know what they want as a client. And then I'm just like, okay, I know a good way of bringing this form in, so I'll use my way that I know works. And then I don't switch one of their plugins on until I definitely need to. So yeah, that's a good way of doing it.
Yeah, I might just say, I think you actually need someone who knows how the site works pretty well and develop a test plan through that, because you then go through that test plan and all those key areas that you need to use. If you've turned everything off and it's still working, fine. But as you turn a plugin off, you run through that test plan, and it relies on actually understanding what your site does to a fair extent. I don't think there's any automatic way of doing it. You really need to do some form of test plan for each of your plugins. You can either do it one at a time or do it all and then turn on what you need. There's a couple of different approaches, but yeah, I think it really comes down to just change it, test it, and iterate through that.
I wonder at what stage it becomes faster to actually rebuild from scratch.
That's it, right? That's the key question. When I'm doing plugin audits, what I generally do, like the first 2 things I do is I look down the plugin list, and all the ones that are out of date and not supported, they get deactivated because they shouldn't be on there anyway. So that's another conversation to have with the client, to say, you can't use that because it's got vulnerabilities, so you need to look for something else. And then I go down and look for plugins that do the same thing. So for example, I did a website audit last month, maybe a couple of months ago, and the person had like Oxygen and Divi and Beaver Builder and Elementor and 3 or 4 other page buildery type things in there. I'm just like, what? So I'm just like, choose one, get rid of the rest. So I group things. Well, I look down and see what they do, and if they've got like 2 or 3 plugins that do roughly the same thing, I bunch them together and go, now you get to choose one and work with it. And usually they'll come back and say, oh yeah, but this plugin does this, and this other plugin does this one thing. Like, well, for the sake of loading lots and lots of files in, maybe you can live without that one feature. And it's going to make your page go faster and your SEO rankings will go higher. So what would you like to do? Go down the rankings or keep the plugin? What do you want to? Yeah, no, that's a good question. Everyone wants things to go faster. And having lots of plugins. I've got about 30 plugins on one of my website, but not all of them are heavy hitting plugins. Some of them just do one or 2 simple things in admin, and they don't even load in any files. So just filtering the way that WordPress works. So lots of plugins is not a bad thing sometimes. I guess, John, if you over 100, I would probably say that is that's too many.
Yeah. Again, it's just with clients who don't know what they're doing. That's it. And they've downloaded these things because they thought they needed it and they didn't need it. Or they've downloaded the same thing 10 times and not deleted it. The same thing. Look in my cupboard. There's tins of things in there. I bought them 5 years ago. I don't know what they are.
Yeah, good question. How are you guys doing for time? Everyone okay? Yep. Any other questions?
Can I ask you one, Will?
Yeah.
It's kind of what we've been talking about, because today is the big day for Core Web Vitals. To try and sum it up in a sentence, what is it? And how is it different to what I knew before about a slow website is going to get me a worse SEO score? How is it different to what was there already with Google? What have they done that's new? Okay,
cool. That's a really, really good question. Okay, so page speed is still like one of the most important things, but the Google Core Web Vitals is page speed and user experience kind of bundled together. So it's not just how fast your page loads, it's how much somebody can interact with it as well. And one of the Core Web Vitals is the time it takes for your web page to become interactive. So that's the time it takes for it to load from the server until someone can click a button or fill out a form for those. And that's a different measurement of speed for that. So you could have a web page that loads in 2 seconds, but if it's got some JavaScript that's doing stuff with a form and the form is not available or the button isn't available, then that's going to increase that time as well. So they've got those different points to measure those. The other one is about, the other part of experience is the stability as well. So they measure how much a web page jumps around. So you'll know yourself, I've visited loads of pages where you can see the page rendering and there's a button there and you go to click on the button and suddenly, an ad, it's replaced by an advert and you're suddenly in some weird, dodgy experience. So that's one of those Core Web Vitals, that measure. Again, it goes more to usability than it is for page speed. So it's basically the speed and the user experience all kind of bundled together, and that's the measurement values that they're doing. So that's how it differs from just speed alone. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. So essentially, when I open up a web page, it should all be there. If an image is there, it should be sort of an empty white space that then fills up with an image, on the basis that if the image is there, the text is there regardless of whether I can see the image or not. Is that correct?
That's right. So for everything, for images, for videos, for anything that's got an asset in it, then that space should be defined in a width and a height, so that when the browser's putting out the HTML, it leaves a space for that, and the web page doesn't jump up and down all the time. One of the other measurements as well is for the largest largest contentful paint. So it's the time it takes for the largest object on that page to load in. So even if most of your web page is loading in, if you've got something that's loading in like a big video file or a big image file, and John was talking about WebP and moving to WebP images, that's part of this Web Core Vitals update as well. So it's not just about speed, it's they're picking out different things and rolling it all into a kind of more user experience for that. And those are what they call Core Web Vitals. And they've got numbers for each of those. Some are in seconds, but some of them just are like bespoke numbers, like 1 or 1.2. We're not quite sure what that means. They've got an SDK out that you can download and kind of look at the background. But yeah, some of them are in seconds or milliseconds, and some are just like numbers. And they give you a range in between, which is good, which needs more work, and which is poor for those. And if you run through GT metrics, they've now got the Google Core Web Vitals up right on the homepage as well for those values. And if that's not good enough, next month we're actually doing Google Core Web Vitals Explained. So
we are doing that. Oh,
yeah, I decided tonight I'm going to do that. Yeah, and I've even got a slide to prove it. There we go. See you next week.
As I'm aware, they are judging your page on 28 days or something like that. Is that correct?
Right. So they've got a couple of websites. They've got 3 websites that they allow you to use to get the information from. And within one of those, I think it's Page Insights. There's two information sections. One is historical information, which is stored from the Google Web Servers, and that's over 28 days. And that's an average for that particular URL over 28 days, and they give that a score. And then there's another one where they score the actual page time for that. So when you're looking through the Page Insights, make sure you're scrolling down to the bottom as well, and to see the actual page speed for that particular URL, and not just taking the average at the top. But yes, they will look at the overall average of that site and that particular page, and that's taken into consideration as well. So that's why they've given people a lot longer for this update to try and get time to do this work, to make their sites faster, but also give it time, to store that data and accumulate it over a few weeks. So if people are just starting right now, you're a bit late. You're going to take at least a month to get those average scores down.
Cool.
Robin says, if it's a JavaScript from a plugin that is render blocking and slowing performance, would you approach the plugin developers to move their code lower, if that makes sense? It does, Robin. So Robin's talking about when a plugin is loading in files with WordPress. You can choose a priority as to when scripts load in, and you can also force them to load into the footer as well. If you're not a developer, then yes, I guess your only aspect to do that. There's a couple of plugins. I don't know them off the top of my head, but if you search for defer JavaScript footer in WordPress.org, you'll probably find some of those, and they will try and push all the JavaScript files down towards the footer, so it's loading in at the end for that. Or if you're a developer, then yes, you can find out those files and actually put them in your function.php and deregister and then register them in the footer for those. But if you're not want to use the plugin, if you're not a developer, then yeah, the best bet is to go back to the plugin developer and say, hey, you've got this JavaScript file and it's loading up in right at the header, and it's slowing the entire website. Can you please move that down into the footer? Just raise a support request on WordPress.org. In the plugin in the support tab, and they hopefully should get back to you for that. But yeah, that's a good question, Robin.
I'm just putting a link in here as well now from WP Beginner, which I haven't read myself, about how to move JavaScript to the bottom of the footer, or to the bottom or the footer. So that might help. There might be some suggestions in there as well.
Cool. Any other general questions? If not, we might call it a close because it's come up for 7 o'clock.
It is too. Great.
Okay, I think we're going to call that for today. So thank you very much, guys. Thank you so much for taking your time to join us tonight. Thank you for Julia and John as well for keeping in the chat and pipping in with the help as well. It's always good to see you guys. Good to have you on camera, and thanks to those guys in chat as well. Some great questions came through there. So you saw that next month we're going to do the Google Core Web Vitals Explained. I did give this talk on the WordPress Sydney meetup, and it's just going to be a rerun of that. So if you've already seen that, then there's not going to be much change. I might add a couple of slides specifically for Elementor, just based on those settings that we talked about in the work that they're doing to increase the Elementor speed. But in general, it's going to be the same presentation. What I do, I just go through the Core Web Vitals. I tell you exactly what it is. We talked a little bit about it tonight. And then go through those 3 particular metrics that they cover within the Core Web Vitals, what they are, and some things that you can do with your WordPress website in general to get those page speeds up as well. And if you are looking at doing that, you have to make sure that you do it for both a desktop and web. So the different vitals for each, for those for the web and the desktop. So I've been working on my websites, getting the desktop version done first. So it's looking pretty good. It's up in like the 80s for those, but my mobile experience is pretty poor. I think it's 22 or 27 out of 100. So more work for me to do on the mobile, but most of my users are desktop, so that's where I've been focusing first. So come along next month. First Thursday of July it will be. Let's see, when is that? It's July the 1st. Yep, I got it up on the screen there. July the 1st. Google Core Web Vitals Explained. Now, as John said, they rolled out some of that today. Google decided not to roll it all out today. So the first half has been rolled out today, and it will slowly ripple through the internet over the next week. But then the second half of that is going to be rolled out sometime in July, I believe. And there's a website called Search Engine Journal. Yep, searchenginejournal.com, and they just put a post out today about that. So they got some more specifics about the rollout, and they've got dates as well for the next one. So it's not all been rolled out, but definitely you have to keep an eye on your page rankings over the next month or so, just to see what this new algorithm has done to it. Other than that, I'm going to say thank you very much to everyone. Thanks, John, Paul, Dewi, Steph, and Robin in the chat as well. And great, we'll see you guys next month. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
See you.